This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name's Russell Osborne and I'm back with another of our European Championship lookbacks. We've covered 1980, 1988 and 1992, all of which are still available to listen to via your chosen podcast platform. And indeed, threelionspodcast.com. Thanks for all your comments so far, despite the fact England haven't really been that convincing, to say the least. Until now. If you know nothing about Euro 96, sit back and relax. If you know a little, maybe you'll learn some more. And if you were there, well, let the memories flow. 30 years after the World Cup was held on home soil, the European Championships were held here in England for the first time. UEFA awarded it to us ahead of bids from Austria, Greece, the Netherlands and Portugal. It was a tournament of firsts. The first time 16 teams had featured, as it had expanded from 8. And at the time of finalising bids, UEFA hadn't actually decided that the tournament would be expanded to 16. So all bids only factored in 4 venues. And it was the first time golden goal had been used to decide a game. In other words, once extra time had been started, it was school rules, next goal wins, and it was only used once throughout the whole tournament. And the championships featured, for the first time, a coloured ball, the first one to be used at a major football tournament, the Adidas Questra Europa. Now, following the World Cup failure, Graham Taylor stepped down as England manager and Terry Venables was appointed. As a player, he'd previously made 2 appearances for the Three Lions, both in 1964, and he was on Alf Ramsey's possibles list for 1966. Now, he had a spell as manager of Barcelona, where he'd been known as El Tel. He went on to manage Tottenham Hotspur, leading them to victory in the FA Cup. But Venables and Tottenham parted ways in May 1993, leaving him to be appointed as England manager in January 1994. Now, being hosts meant that England didn't have to go through a qualifying campaign. And as they hadn't qualified for the World Cup of 1994, their last competitive match had been on the 17th of November 1993. A 7-1 away win against San Marino. Yep, that game where San Marino scored first after 8 seconds. Between then and their opening game against Switzerland on the 8th of June 1996, they played 19 friendlies. 15 of them at Wembley. There was also the Umbro Cup, which was basically a rehearsal for the forthcoming tournament. Not just for Wembley, but for the nation as a whole, as Goodison Park, Villa Park, Ellen Road and Nottingham Forest City Ground hosted matches between England, Brazil, Japan and Sweden. Brazil went on to win the competition, winning 3 out of 3 matches. Then there was also the infamous away game in Dublin that was abandoned due to crowd trouble during that period of time. At the last of those 19 friendlies was a little trip over to East Asia to play China and a Hong Kong Golden Select 11. Now, England came away with 2 wins, but it was off the field that England grabbed the headlines. After the Hong Kong game, the team went off to celebrate Paul Gascoigne's forthcoming birthday in a club called China Jump. Photos emerged of the players with ripped t-shirts and having spirits tipped down their throats in the dentist chair. The Sun splashed them on the front page with the headline, "Disgrace Fool." There are also stories of the plane returning to England with smashed televisions on it. Our Euro 1996 tournament slogan was "Football Comes Home," and it was enhanced by the Three Lions song as composed by comedians Frank Skinner and David Baddiel, West Brom and Chelsea fans respectively. And they had the help of popular band at the time, the Lightning Seeds. The song was to be sung from the Wembley terraces as England progressed through the competition. Actually, the official track though. That was done by Mick Hucknall's Simply Red and their song We're In This Together, which they performed at the opening and closing ceremony.
Your Royal Highness, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wembley Stadium and the opening ceremony of the 1996 European Football Championship Finals.
The opening ceremony was held at Wembley before the opening game between England and Switzerland. It featured the usual dancers in each participating nation's colours, a large dragon and St George on horseback running around the dog track that separated the pitch from the terraces. Many Old England players from various eras walked out onto the pitch to be greeted. Stanley Matthews, Jimmy Greaves, Ray Clements, Ray Wilkins, Glenn Hoddle and Gary Lineker. Stanley Matthews then unveiled a large Henry Delaunay trophy in the middle of the pitch, before skydivers entered the stadium from above with participating nations' flags attached. The Duke of Kent then announced the tournament open as balloons emerged from that trophy Sir Stanley Matthews had uncovered.
And I now declare open the 1996 European Football Championship Final.
Alongside Wembley, there were 7 other stadiums in use. Newcastle's St James's Park, Liverpool's Anfield, Manchester United's Old Trafford, Aston Villa's Villa Park, Nottingham Forest's City Ground, Sheffield Wednesday's Hillsborough, and Leeds United's Elland Road. And alongside England in Group A were Switzerland, Scotland and the Netherlands. Group B consisted of France, Spain, Bulgaria and Romania. Group C, Germany, Czech Republic, Italy and Russia. And finally in Group D, Portugal, Croatia, Denmark and Turkey. The squads had now increased from 20 players in 1992 to 22 now in 1996. Terry Venables opted for the following. In goal, 3 players, David Seaman, Tim Flowers and Ian Walker. Defenders, Gary and Phil Neville, Stuart Pearce, Tony Adams, Gareth Southgate, Steve Howie and Sol Campbell. In midfield, Paul Ince, David Platt, Paul Gascoigne, Darren Anderton, Nick Barmby, Jamie Redknapp, Steve McManaman and Steve Stone. And 4 players up front, Alan Shearer, Teddy Sheringham, Les Ferdinand and Robbie Fowler. Of course, the combination of Alan Shearer and Teddy Sheringham became known as the SAS, Shearer and Sheringham. What a summer and what a tournament it was about to become. Whilst many went to the games around the country, lots more only saw it through the television. With the BBC, and ITV. Now, let's talk with another England fan who was part of it. Now let's go back to Euro 1996 in the next of our podcasts that look at England at the European Championships. And I'm pleased to say Dean Cornish, regular England fan, is going to join us and share his memories from that tournament. Dean, hello there.
Hello, Russell. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to this good chat about Euro 96.
Yeah, well, I mean, with a tournament this year that is home-based, I'm guessing that we're going to be hearing a lot about, or people reminiscing about, not just World Cup 66, but Euro 96 as well, simply because of the amount of games that England, hopefully, are going to be playing at home. Let's start with England and yourself. Where did it all start?
Well, I mean, to be honest, for me as an England fan, I suppose I really got into following the national team probably around 1986, 1990. Obviously England's fantastic showings in the World Cups then. I was 8 years of age in 86 and then obviously 12 in 1990. I loved England. I loved football generally anyway. But I was, even as a young lad, I was quite patriotic. And of course, then when we knew that the tournament in '96, the Euros, was going to be in England, I was gagging to get tickets. I mean, for me, it was I was 18 at the time of 1996. It was my first tournament experience. Of course, I'd been to a few sort of friendlies at Wembley and maybe the odd qualifier, but to actually go and watch England in a tournament, it was absolutely superb. I'll never forget it. It was the summer I was doing my A-levels.
Right.
So I had a few other things going on at the time, so I couldn't get to as many games as I wanted to. But I was at the Scotland game, which was on a Saturday, which was absolutely brilliant. In so many ways, because it was the game where we sort of, I suppose, started to take control of the group. Obviously, it was against Scotland, which is always massive anyway, and it was a sunny summer Saturday. What more could you want?
Yeah, no, that was in fact my very first England game, and I remember that one as you would with any first game. And you're right, it was blazingly warm and sunny that day, and the pitch just looked perfect for a game.
Yeah, I mean that was the great thing, wasn't it, about the old Wembley? You could, when the sun shone, you had the shadows of the Twin Towers on the pitch, and I think it was a 3 o'clock kickoff, so the shadows were just as they used to be on a FA Cup final day.
Yeah,
everything about that day was superb. I mean, I remember obviously after the win, driving back up the North Circular, and I remember seeing lads like they're all outside the pubs, all everyone was beeping each other, and flags were flying, and it was a great time to be an England fan. It really was. But I do remember during the game. Obviously, everyone knows about Paul Gascoigne's goal, obviously the second, but it was the penalty save for me. That was the bigger roar. It was absolute bedlam when Seaman saved that penalty from McAllister. It was absolutely brilliant, and obviously, we know we all went up the other end and scored, and it was still pandemonium, obviously at that point. But for me, the bit that sticks in my mind was when that penalty was saved. It was superb.
There was a few instances in that game. Everyone remembers the penalty save. Everyone remembers Gazza's goal and the dentist chair that followed. But poor old Alan Shearer often gets forgotten for setting us up for that day.
Yeah, I know.
To be honest, I don't really remember the goal, even though I've sort of seen it back on YouTube and the like. But he kind of gets omitted from that day.
It does, yeah. I mean, it was funny. Shearer generally in that tournament. I mean, he was absolutely superb. But just before the tournament, he couldn't score for Toffee. Really, I think I don't know exactly how many games it was, but maybe there was 10 games or so before the tournament started, and he wasn't scoring like he obviously had been in the Premier League, obviously as it was at the time, or obviously still is. But yeah, as soon as he scored his first goal against Switzerland, wasn't it, in the first game?
Yeah,
you could sort of tell that he was going to go on a run then, and that he did. I mean, he was great throughout. He was Shearer, for his absolute best for England.
Do you reckon that was because we didn't have any qualifiers, that sort of the pressure was off?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you could say that. I suppose it's strange, isn't it, when you host a tournament? Because you say you don't get any real football for a couple of years beforehand, do you?
No.
So maybe it was partly to do with the pressure. Maybe you just didn't get any luck. And it's not easy scoring goals in international football, and it's a cliche, obviously, but often you go a few games without a goal, then suddenly you get one, and then they flow from there, don't they?
Yes, yeah, you're right. How did you go about getting your tickets? Because I seem to remember, I mean, I only went to the one game during the tournament, but I got it through, and the name of this bank I always forget it, but I got it through a bank. I had to apply through a bank, and it was a bank with a yellow logo. That's all I can remember.
Right. I don't remember that, but I remember having a paper application. It was like a sort of card leaflet almost, and you sort of just basically filled out the games or the tickets you wanted and sent it off. And I wouldn't say it was guaranteed that you were getting those tickets, but I certainly didn't have any problems. I think the tickets I had for the Scotland game were good tickets. I think I might have gone for like one of the higher category tickets, knowing that would be the more difficult one to get. But the Spain game, I also went to the Spain game, which obviously was the quarterfinal, and we just thought we were going to win the group, so we applied for as you do, the quarterfinals group winner of Group A or whoever it was, and I think we paid £35 a ticket.
Which is still great, isn't it?
Which is still great, yeah. I was behind the goal, obviously at Wembley, which you were quite a way back, weren't you, at the old Wembley? Yeah. Behind the goal in the Spain game, but I was pretty much on the halfway line for the Scotland game. But yeah, I certainly don't remember it being a hassle. I don't remember, obviously this was pre-internet days, so you weren't having to download the UEFA app, or I don't remember CAP certainly. Well, I wasn't a travel club member at the time, so CAP certainly wouldn't have come into it. I'm not even sure if there was a travel club at the time. Maybe there was, but maybe caps weren't a thing then. But yeah, I certainly remember it being pretty easy to get a ticket.
Yeah, certainly different to times of now, where it's a little harder to get a ticket for a tournament, or the procedure is slightly different.
Yeah, exactly. And certainly, well, I don't know when I applied, but I'm not sure it was 7 or 8 months beforehand. Maybe it was. I don't know. The memory fails me a little bit, but I remember sort of thinking, right, here's my application form, here's my bit of card. It was the bit I remember was that it was green. There was a green sort of 4-page sort of leaflet type thing. So literally wrote in, I want 4 tickets for the Spain game, 3 tickets for the Scotland game, this category, this is the price I'll pay. Tick that box. You probably have to put your bank card details on there, sent it off, and it was easy.
So, well, I mean, we've missed one game in the middle there, which is the one that often gets spoken about, because starting at the beginning where that Switzerland game, it wasn't the best of games, but it got us up and going. And then the Scotland game was where the country really got behind the team. And then it was the 4-1 game against Holland, the last group game, where it just went berserk, didn't it?
It did. I mean, I remember I had 2 A-levels the next day. I think it was on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night, and I definitely had 2 A-levels the next day. But I still managed to get out to the pub to watch it in my hometown, Stamford. And as you say, it was bedlam. Absolutely brilliant. Because obviously England, I think before the tournament started, everyone feared that Holland team. It was the Holland of Kluivert, Bergkamp. And we absolutely played them off the park. And it was, I think, as any England fan knows, often, England, we've had many episodes where we've beaten poor teams or mid-ranking teams, but beating a really good team is actually quite rare. Certainly in terms of tournaments, it's rare that we do it. And that Holland team was a proper belting team, and we played them off the park. We didn't just beat them. We absolutely, we played superbly. I still think about the goal, obviously, where Gascoigne dribbles it around a little bit on the left, lays it across to Sheringham, who's just, I guess, on the D, lays it across with the right of his, or plays it to the right to Alan Shearer, comes on first time, right foot into the top right-hand corner of the net. To me, that goal is as special in that tournament as Gascoigne's, because it was a team goal. It was the one that really sort of showed our dominance in that game. Oh, it was brilliant. Yeah. And it's the first time I remember as well watching a big England game in a pub where there was atmosphere. Maybe that's because of my age. Maybe because I was only 18. I'd probably not been, out into, watching tournaments. Well, in fact, I'm sure I had, because 94, obviously we didn't qualify. And before that, I would have just been at home with my parents watching it, I guess. But I certainly remember there being atmosphere in the pub. Everyone suddenly starting to get behind the whole Three Lions song, which was a bit of a slow burner, really. I mean, I remember first hearing Three Lions before the tournament and liking it, but people weren't singing it. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that people were singing, certainly not on the terraces or in the pubs, but it suddenly started all taking shape in that game. It was superb. And actually as well, I know I talked about the Scotland game being on a Saturday afternoon, which is, special for English football fans, 3:00, Wembley, Saturday afternoon. But actually having a game that's an evening game that made it even more special as well, because, under the floodlights at Wembley, a belting atmosphere, because obviously the Dutch brought, a number of fans, as Scotland had as well, but the Dutch are a very vocal fan base. And, it was quite weird I remember seeing like the away end of the Dutch just on the television, obviously. And I suppose it was rare to get big international away followings, but to see that in Euro 96, see the Dutch there, and obviously England playing as they did, and the Dutch being quietened down for in that regard, it was brilliant. It was a really, really memorable night. And I wasn't drinking much because obviously I had my A-levels the next day, but I remember just sort of bouncing out of that pub, and I actually reckon I probably did better in my A-levels the next day, just because I was, when you're just so happy, you just, it was, and everyone then started to look forward to the knockout rounds, and it was, it was superb.
And you mentioned the Three Lions there. Was it that game where there's footage of Frank Skinner and David Baddiel sort of jumping around in, I don't think it was actually the Royal Box, but certainly in that sort of area. Was it that game where they were shown on telly?
I think it was. And I think that's when everyone, as I said, started realising what a big thing that song had become. Maybe it was after the Scotland game. I can't quite remember, but certainly early on in the tournament, it definitely wasn't sung at Wembley. And yeah, everyone was so jubilant that night, weren't they?
Yeah.
So, fair play to Baddiel and Skinner, who are, proper England football fans. They'd been part of that song, obviously, with the lightning seeds. And, why wouldn't they celebrate it? And I know now it's special to me that you hear them talking about that summer, and them saying that when they started to hear fans singing it in the ground, to them it was massively special. And actually that song is still sung now, not only by England fans, but, the tune is sung as, football chants around the world, isn't it? Not even anything to do with It's Coming Home or anything like that. That actual tune has become synonymous with football songs.
Yeah, no, it's worked its way around football grounds in various guises. I know what you mean. So that Spain game, the quarter-final, was won really after the two preceding victories, which were, I say, the emphatic one. Well, actually, going back to that Holland one, it was the Holland goal that actually put Scotland out, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Clivett scored, didn't he? For them to get the one in the 4-1. You're right. Yeah, Scotland would have gone through on goal difference had it been 4-0, which I certainly don't remember realising that at the time. But of course, when you did find that out later on, it sort of became, quite funny, really. Everyone loves to see Scotland fail, and that was it. And actually, maybe I do remember something. Maybe I do remember actually when he scored. Maybe they panned to Villa Park, which I think was where Scotland were playing. And maybe I do remember, sort of laughing at the time. Who knows? But yeah, it was. It certainly made it even more special that Scotland didn't get through.
Yeah. As I say, so we went on to that quarter-final to play Spain, and it wasn't straightforward following those two victories over Scotland and Holland, was it?
No, it wasn't. No. I mean, I think everyone thought after the Holland game that we'd go on and breeze past everyone and, and win it at a canter. But, I suppose anyone who knows England generally knows that's never the case, isn't it? You often have a good performance followed by a poor one. Yeah. And we weren't great in that game. And actually, we should have gone out, shouldn't we? Because in extra time, they scored and it was flagged offside. And the end where they scored, I was behind that goal. And I can't necessarily remember whether I thought it was offside or onside, but I remember just sinking down, thinking that's it. And then obviously, the flag had gone up and the referee disallowed it. And, I suppose jubilant after that. Then obviously it goes to penalties. It was very nerve-wracking, very nerve-wracking. I guess we obviously could pan out that we were going to be playing Germany in the semi-final, and everyone wanted the revenge for 1990, and obviously everyone wanted to get through anyway. But I think that the possibility of playing Germany in the next round made it more special. So yeah, I remember I was with my best mate actually, who's subsequently been my best man at my wedding, whenever that was 5 or so years ago. So I've known him for at least probably 25, 30 years. and I was with him, and we've always, loved football together, me and this lad. And I just remember sort of, when you're so nervous that every time, they're attacking, especially in extra time, when it gets towards the end of the game, whenever the opposition were attacking, we were almost sort of holding each other, just hoping that they wouldn't score. But yeah, and then obviously, when it went to penalties,
I guess everyone was thinking in their heads going back to like 1990.
Yeah. I mean, that was still so raw. I remember, it was only 6 years previously. So I was a 12-year-old, and I definitely remember watching that at home with my parents and crying my eyes out.
Yeah, me too.
Pierce, I was absolutely sickened. So yeah, for us to get the chance for a bit of retribution, and obviously you should mention as well that obviously 1994 we'd not qualified for that tournament. We'd been pretty poor in 1992. So suddenly, we're back in tournament football. We're back, with a chance of winning something, and it comes down to the dreaded penalties again. And obviously Stuart Pearce, the protagonist in all of it. After his penalty was saved in 1990, for him to step up again, and that's the mark of Stuart Pearce, isn't it? You knew that he's the sort of bloke. He was never going to shirk it. He was never going to not take one. And I think everyone knew as well the sort of penalties that Stuart Pearce took. He was never going to do a Panenka, was he?
No.
it was never going to be sort of, gleefully sort of glanced into the side netting. He was going to rifle it in, and then 6 years of pain for him just flooded out of him like a monster coming out of his mouth, screaming and, sort of almost beating his chest. It was absolutely brilliant. But I didn't see any of that. I mean, obviously I saw that the penalty went in, but I don't remember, certainly not at the time, seeing Stuart Pearce's celebration. His fame now, we've seen it obviously on telly and, YouTube a million times since, but I don't remember seeing that at the time.
Was that your end that you were at?
Yeah, it was.
And it was, even now thinking about it, it is one of those moments where the hairs on the back of your neck sort of go up. And just seeing his face, his emotion, as you say, just that passion just coming out of him, and the relief that must have given him to get that in the net and get us through to the next round, really, which was the semi-final.
Yeah. I mean, Stuart Pearce he's an embodiment of an England fan, isn't he? I think all of us England fans who travel with a team, you want the team, or you want the players to love playing for England as much as we love watching England. You want them to be fans themselves. You want them to really sort of take on that sort of, the same patriotism that the fans have got. And Stuart Pearce he's definitely one of those who've got it. And I've actually got a picture of that, the picture of Stuart Pearce screaming. I've got it in a copy photograph of it signed actually in my house now. It's one of those iconic pictures that you'll never forget. And for me as an England fan, it's absolutely brilliant.
Lucky you, signed one.
Yeah. Sorry, you were leading me on to the semi-final, and then I went back to Stuart Pearce. So.
That's all right.
But yeah, the semi-final, I actually had a leavers ball that night. The school, as I mentioned, it was my A-levels that year, and at that point we'd finished our A-levels and we had our leavers ball. So even though I hadn't ordered a ticket beforehand, there were tickets that were available. I think obviously the allocation to England. I remember hearing after the Spain game that there were 11,000 tickets on sale to England fans.
Wow! And
of course, me and my pal were like, God, we really want to go, but it was our school, leavers thing, which I guess it seems strange now to say it took priority, but it seemed to at the time. I don't know why. So we went along to that, and I remember the lad who was organising it from our school. He got a TV. You could back in the 90s, you had to wheel in a TV or something like like in a sort of classroom, and we all sat around and watched it at this do. Much to the annoyance, I think, of all the women who'd sort of come along and were in their best dresses. I don't think many of them wanted to watch the football, but we all did. But it obviously ruined the night because although we had such a great start with Shearer's header after 4 minutes, everyone's thinking, right, we're gonna cruise this now, and then it's going to be almost an easy final against the Czech Republic. But yeah, Shearer scored, and then obviously they came back, and then my biggest memory when I think back to that game now was obviously Gascoigne sliding in, their keeper. I forgot his name now. But anyway, I remember the ball came across. I think it was Anderton squared it, and Gascoigne sort of almost hesitated because he thought the keeper was going to get his hand on it, and obviously didn't, and it came across the just inside the 6-yard line. Gascoigne, sticks his foot out, and he's just almost, if it had an extra half an inch on his stud, he would have got a stud on it. It would have gone in, and I mean, that obviously, if it had done, then as I said, I think we would have easily won the final, and we wouldn't be talking of 60 years of hurt as we are now.
Yeah, that's right. There was one thing about, and I'm sure it was this game. I remember watching it, the BBC, and I think it would have been John Motson. And I think it was the phrase, there was a German player who, I think it was him that equalised. Was it Kunst?
Yeah.
And he famously said, "Here comes the Germans, Kunst," as was on the ball.
Yeah.
Makes me laugh, yeah.
Yeah, it was. And actually, that's another thing about, and maybe I'm just getting a bit wistful in my old age, but the commentary as well of Euro 96, the commentators like Barry Davis, John Motson, these guys were iconic in my youth. They're iconic when I listen back to it now. Des Lynam, I think he said at the start of the semi-final coverage, good evening. In case you didn't know, there's a game on tonight or something, because obviously everyone in the country was sitting down for this game. That was probably the biggest, television event of the 90s, barring Lady Diana's funeral or something like that. It was so massive. And, to look back now on YouTube and hear those commentators like Davis and Motson, who to me are head and shoulders above a lot of the guys that you hear nowadays. Maybe that's just me because I'm old and I'm, you sort of, you always look back with rose tinted glasses, who knows? But yeah, it was a real special time.
Yeah. So we went on to after the penalties that we'd had against Spain had all gone our way, and Stuart Pearce had obviously expelled those demons. We were back in another penalty shootout, weren't we?
Yeah, and the first one was Shearer, wasn't it? Shearer banged his in as he always did. I'm sort of guessing that, but I think then we had Sheringham put his away. Yeah. Gascoigne definitely put his away as well. Weirdly, Ince didn't take one. I can't remember. Maybe Anderton took one and scored, and it was 5-5, wasn't it? I think did everyone score their penalties in sort of the sort of normal penalties? And then of course they took the 6th one. Southgate took the 6th one first. I think obviously it got saved, and then it was the chap with the moustache who stuck the Germans one away for them to win. Yeah, I'll never forget his smug face either. The German lad put his in, can't remember his name, and he sort of turned around and he almost did a little bit of an Alan Pardew dance, in Alan Pardew in the FA Cup final a few years, and he just had this smug face with his moustache.
Was that Moller?
Might have been. I can't remember, but yeah, I mean, it still annoys me now, 30 years on.
Obviously, Gareth Southgate as every time he's interviewed, unfortunately, he gets asked about it. But there was a great picture taken or edited last year during the World Cup where it showed him dejected after missing the penalty. I think he had his hand over his nose and over his mouth, and there was a 2018 Gareth Southgate being edited in to put his arm around him, which I thought was a wonderful touch.
Yeah.
But it kind of made him really, I think, last year and after that miss.
Yeah, I think so. I think you could see, obviously in the Colombia game, you could see what it meant to him. He's not quite the same sort of bloke who's going to have a Stuart Pearce moment, is he? But although actually he did do a bit of a chest beat, didn't he?
He's had his moments. Yeah,
he did. Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much as Stuart Pearce, but yeah, you can see what it means to Southgate actually. And I think a lot of England fans might not have been so excited about him. I certainly wasn't when he first took the job. And I've still actually, if I'm honest, I've got reservations about him tactically, when it comes to let's say a big semi-final or a big quarter-final like we might have next year or this, upcoming tournament. But obviously he has done a fantastic job with galvanising the team, maybe making them realise what it is to play for England, making them all, one unit and, making England fun again for some of those players.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's passed on that experience, and those players that are playing under him, maybe they were in the same position as we are watching it. Or maybe just a little bit too young, but they've certainly all seen it on the likes of YouTube and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I really think it, without sort of sounding, parochial or xenophobic, I really do think it makes a big difference having an England manager, A, being English, and B, having played for England. I think, they can pass along, the sort of, the mantle of being England players onto England. So England players go on to England managers, and then you can talk to the current players about what it was like in the past and explain to them, how important it is. And also the current players probably look at that manager and think, well, he's been there and done it, so I'll listen to him. Whereas, obviously we had the Sven and Fabio Capello experiments. I mean, I actually quite like the Sven era. I didn't think Sven did as bad a job as people make out, but obviously Capello, although we were very good in qualifying, we were abysmal, weren't we, in 2010? And I don't think they really, or certainly Capello, didn't quite get it. And then other England managers who might be English, like let's say McLaren, but they hadn't played for England. I think it does make a difference. And Glenn Hoddle obviously had played for England, and I thought Glenn Hoddle did do a good job. Maybe that's a similar sort of thing. In '98, we were unlucky to go out to Argentina. Obviously, the Beckham sending off, and even after having Beckham sent off and playing with 10 men, we still matched Argentina. We obviously just went out in penalties in that game. So I didn't think Hoddle did a bad job, and maybe Southgate's a similar sort of guy. He's an ex-England player, and he's getting his England team playing well.
Yes, no, I totally agree. So how do you see it going then this year?
How do I see it going? Well, I think we'll get out of the group. I think we'll play well in the group. I think we've got a pretty favourable draw. I think we'll beat the Czech Republic. I think it was probably a good thing that we lost to them in qualifying recently, because I think that'll mean that the team won't take them lightly. They'll concentrate. They'll want to get a bit of retribution. So I think we'll beat them. I think Croatia, similar, use the word retribution. Obviously, after Russia the other year, I think the England players will be up for that, like they were in the Nations League when we played them in that. So I think we'll get through the group. Hopefully, we play Scotland. That's the other thing. It'd be superb if Scotland do get that through their playoff. It's probably the only time I'd actually want Scotland to win a couple of games.
We really would evoke memories of '96 then, wouldn't we?
Yeah, it would, and it'll be a Friday night game. I think the Scotland game, if they do get through. I mean, and that would be absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I think we'll get through the group, and then obviously, it's knockout football, isn't it? We've got, if we win the group, which I think we will, we've obviously got a difficult second round game in Dublin
against one of the big boys. Then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's against the whoever's in the group of death. And this is what I was saying about Southgate: is if we have a knockout game against a Germany, Italy, Spain, Holland, are we going to beat them? And whilst I might think we've got a good team, and I think that Southgate's done a good job, I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe it's because so often England fail against the big teams in tournaments. We've got to semi-finals in 2018. Obviously, talking of World Cups in 1990 as well. And if we're honest, we've had quite an easy run up to those semi-finals. In Euro 96, you could argue, well, we were lucky against Spain and we had home advantage. So when it comes to the big games, England often are caught a little bit short. And I just think with Southgate, I think we might be. I think we'd need a bit of luck in that second round game. If we get through that, then I'm not sure who would get in the quarter final. Then would be in Rome, wouldn't be, or St. Petersburg. Again, it'll be a difficult game. But obviously get through that, and then you're back at Wembley. And you'd hope that, a semi-final and then final at Wembley, you'd hope we should be able to maybe do it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm normally really positive, and my phrase at the start of every tournament is I always say, we can win this. Because it's a phrase from Escape to Victory, where I think it's half time. They're all in the bath water's coming out. They're all about to escape. And I think it's Michael Caine or someone else says, we're not escaping. We can win this. and I always think that before every tournament. And I'd love to say we can win this obviously, Euro 2020. But I worry tactically. I worry that when we come up against a big team, I think we might fall a little bit short unless we get to the semi-final, and then hopefully the power of Wembley, the power of the England fans will drive us through and win it. But I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm overly confident, Russell.
Well, maybe Gareth Southgate should put a DVD on of that 4-1 game against Holland.
Yeah,
in the dressing room.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you what, actually, one thing that hopefully there'll be a re-release of Three Lions, or someone else will do a decent football song that captures the nation, because you almost need that, especially with a sort of home tournament. You need something that's going to galvanise everyone, whether that's the big win against Holland, or whether that's a great song or a cracking atmosphere, whatever it is. You almost need something to like the touch paper. And in Euro 96, it was either the Holland game or it was obviously beating Scotland. But before that, the Switzerland game, it was a little bit, I don't know, it felt a little bit flat. The opening ceremony wasn't amazing. It felt a little bit flat. And I think if we, going into that tournament next year, hopefully there's either one massive performance at Wembley, or there's a good song or something just to get everyone massively up for it, like they were in 2018 as well. Obviously, the whole country got behind Southgate's boys then, and hopefully it'll be the same in the summer of 2020.
Yeah, let's hope so. And going back to the song there, I mean, I wouldn't know, but any other countries have a song to go with their national team? Oh, I'm not aware of anyone that does.
No, I can't think of any, actually. And I've watched quite a lot of football abroad. I've lived in Spain for a bit, and I spend a lot of time in Brazil, but I can't think of any sort of similar song that's synonymous with the national football team. No, and I don't think there is.
Well, this is the opportunity is there for someone. Do a New Order or a Frank Skinner and David Baddiel Three Lions again, as you say.
The only other thing to say on that is, famously, the Germans love a bit of Three Lions as well, don't they? They often still sing "It's Coming Home Now," even though it's obviously our song in English from our tournament. Obviously, with them winning that tournament, I remember it, and it still rankles me now. Thinking of Klinsmann and some of the other German players on the balcony, and maybe I think it might have been Munich. Actually, they had a little presentation, as teams do after they get back to their country. They have a open top bus ride, and then they all sang in sort of poor English, "It's Coming Home." And I remember at the time being really annoyed with it, and I'm still annoyed now. But then they adapted it to the German "Es kommt nach Haus," "Es kommt nach Haus," which you think they might be able to get their own football songs.
Well, I've got visions now of open top buses with Gareth Southgate with that trophy now.
Oh yes,
going all around Trafalgar Square and up and down the country. It'd be great. Yeah,
wouldn't that be brilliant? I remember just coming back from 1990 when we just got to the semi-finals. There was an open top bus ride in Luton.
That's right.
The team landed in Luton, and then they did an open top bus ride around there, and that's when Gascoigne had his fake breasts out, didn't he? Yeah, brilliant. I mean, if it could be something similar, this summer it would be. Oh, it'd be great. It really would.
Watch out, Luton! England are coming for you.
Yeah.
Oh, Dean, thank you very much for sharing your memories there.
No problem.
Yeah, let's hope for another successful tournament.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks a lot, Russell.
Thanks to Dean Cornish there and his memories of a great tournament. Oh, so close. Penalty saves, penalty wins, glorious Gaza, and the Germans again. As we said at the beginning, with this year's tournament being held partially at home, hopefully we can have some similar memories to make, what with Wembley once again being at the centre of it all. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, all the previous Three Lions podcasts are available, including Euros 1980, 88 and 92. Just search your podcast provider or take a look at threelionspodcast.com. Plus, I'd be grateful if you could leave a positive review on the likes of iTunes or Spotify. It means that the podcast gets a little more exposure and more people have the opportunity to find it. So until the next time, cheers!